Sometimes, if I'm having a nice talk with an atheist, the origin of life will come up, they'll be beaten and sad. And I said, I'll tell you what, I'll give you the first life by chance. Okay, I'm granting you life happened by chance. What three things does that first little blob of life have to be able to do for the theory of evolution to be true? It's not a tough question. It has to be able to reproduce. Not only does it have to say, I'm alive, it's got to have the incredible complex chemistry to reproduce. What else does it have to do? It has to be able to metabolize. We call it eating, plants call it photosynthesis. It's got to be able to metabolize, which means take energy, synthesize it for your own needs, and not be poisoned or die and carry on. The third thing, you said, it has to be able to mutate and survive to make the different organisms. See, evolution is complete blind faith. So anyways, you got that first cell, it mutates, 2-cell, 4-cell, 8-cell. Eventually becomes a fish, a reptile, an amphibian, and over billions of years, you got a chicken. Do they have all their problems solved? No, for sexual reproduction, you need a male and a female. If it did happen, male and female, they have to evolve at the same what? Time. Suppose the female is completely mutated, can reproduce. The male has about 10 more mutations to go before he can reproduce. Does she say, hurry up and mutate, dummy, we're dead in a year? Some animals that use sexual reproduction only live for a week. Evolution doesn't have millions of years. It would have a short amount of time. Not only do they have to evolve at the same time, they better be at the same place. She can't be in Germany and he in Canada. You're not going to get any eggs. Same time, same place, where they need to live. Not a hard question. Food. What do they need in order to live? Food would have to evolve before the chickens. Water would have to evolve. The right temperature, the right gravity, ozone layer, the sun, atmospheric pressure. A million things have to evolve before they could live. So what's the best explanation for the chicken and the egg? And even more specifically, the Garden of Eden. Have fun and tell people, I believe the Garden of Eden story. What do you mean? Which came first, the chicken or the egg? I believe an incredibly powerful, brilliant God made males and females, same time, same place, and put them where they had the right what? Right food, temperature, water, gravity, etc. Does it take faith to believe that? Yes, it takes that much faith. Does it take faith to believe matter came from nothing, blew up, formed stars, elements heavier than iron happened, the stars blew up, formed the earth, life came from non-life, the thing could eat, or metabolize, reproduce, mutate, and you get male and female same time, same place with the right temperature. Does that take any faith? I don't have enough faith to be an evolutionist. I can say I will never believe that this happened by chance. Okay, any questions or comments?
How do you explain chickens lay eggs every day without having a rooster around?
They're not fertilized eggs. That's a very good point. Chickens can lay eggs every day. Robert E. Lee had one during the Civil War, but they're not a fertilized egg. They need the rooster around to be fertilized. I think that's an incredible gift from God for us to have food. That's my opinion. But they do lay eggs without being fertilized eggs. Last week I spoke to a bunch of kids in a prison, correctional facility, and he asked a question I never heard. He goes, why do they have that red thing under their beaks? I said, you know, I think it's because it looks good. I can't think. And at the end, he asked, I talked about the flood. Last week, one of the kids said, is the world going to end in a flood? This was last Saturday night. And I said, no, the Bible says the world's going to end by fire. Sunday is when all the fire. And I said, uh-oh. Because they were a very captive audience. Good kids. I mean, they look so innocent, I'd let them all go. But no, they need prayer. My dad's my favorite philosopher of all time. You can overdose on drugs, alcohol, and philosophy. Any amens to that? My dad. I'm scared of philosophers. But my dad has not read a book since high school. He's very smart. I love his wisdom. But once he said to me, he goes, son, Adam and Eve had to be adults. How many have a dad where you just can't wait to hear what their wisdom's going to be? So I said, what is that, Dad? Because human babies are helpless. The first humans could not be a one-day little blob of love that can't even lift his head. There had to be a first human at some time. My dad said, instant male and female adults. I believe the first canines were adults. The first hamsters were adults. You follow me? To take care of the young. Because when they're a day old, they're helpless. They can't really get food for themselves.
Well,
The
if
first kangaroos.
If the kangaroo was created as an infant, where did he go?
Well, what if it was the first kangaroo was a piece of rice or whatever, decided he couldn't eat anything?
There was no pocket to climb into.
Right. The Garden of Eden story takes less and less faith when you dig into the details. And they're all brilliantly designed. I thank my dad for that. Okay. Sometime, how many of you played the dictionary game? Well, what's the definition of design? They all evolutionists love to play that. I'm sure you've seen that. Define this word, define that word. How many people have run into that where they want a bunch of definitions of words? What I always do is I compliment them and get out of the argument. I say, I know you're smart enough to know what I mean when I say design. How can they argue that, right? Well, here's the dictionary definition. A design is something that is what? 2 words. Okay, imagine tomorrow you come home, you walk up your driveway, you see 15 stones on your driveway in that pattern. Would your best guess be that the pattern's a design, like somebody carefully planned and put one there, or does the pattern look like chance, like somebody just tossed it and it spread out? What would your best guess be? Chance? Well, you know for certain no, because you weren't
There.
Well, imagine you come home tomorrow, you walk up your driveway, and you see this on your driveway. What's your best guess now, design or chance?
Design.
Right, are you certain no? Because you weren't.
There.
So you've got faith if you think this happened by design. You got about 3 inches of faith, let's say. You think that happened by chance, you got about 6,000 miles of faith. Both sides have what? Faith. Imagine you come home, you walk up your driveway, and you see this. 250 stones in a perfect circle.
Way too much
How many
Take
are
back one. My daughter's head down there. She helped me. And when you got kids, you're just trying to eat up the time, amen? So I do have plenty of time. So she helped me. You got 250 stones in a perfect circle, and it was my neighbor's driveway. And he came home and he's a cop. But anyways, he likes us. What would your best explanation be if you saw this on your driveway, design or chance? Do you know 100% for certain?
No.
Because you weren't there. Now you've got about the width of a paper worth of faith. If you think somebody tossed 250 stones and did that, do you have faith? From my feet out to the most distant star and back again. How many of you have had people say, well, you've got faith? How many have heard that before? How do you reply?
Yes.
You guys are equipped. Yes, I do, but I think you
Have more faith.
have more faith. What do you mean I have more faith? What are you saying? Do you know how many miles of blood vessels you have? 60,000. Do you think that happened by design or chance? I don't have enough faith to think that happened by chance. Okay? So let's talk about you. Everybody likes to talk about themselves. Nothing wrong with that. You got 75 trillion cells, all in the right place. Something you take for granted. You started out as one little fertilized egg. Now you are 75 trillion cells. But you've got bone cells, hair cells, muscle cells, nerve cells, skin cells. I'll give a book to whoever guesses the closest answer. Pressure's on you. How many different types of cells are in the human body? You know, skin, muscle, lymph.
Is it 6 major? Like major divisions?
I mean like skin, hair, blood, white blood cells, red blood cells, nerve.
There's 6
Any
major-
guesses?
6 major categories.
Take some, 3 guesses.
6 major categories.
You have to look
How many different
nasty.
types of cells? Like muscle, bone.
You've got
skin?
more than that in types of white blood cells.
Yeah. How many different types of cells?
1,000,000?
1,000. Anyone else want to take a guess?
1,001.
I'm so good. Price is right. One more guess. Oh, you should have said 999. He wins. 200. You have 200 different types of cells, but think, you started out as one cell, then you were able to make these different cells, and they went to the right place. Nobody has bone cells on the surface of their eyeball. Nobody's got hair cells in their spinal cord. You're a 75 trillion piece jigsaw puzzle and all the pieces went to the right place. That is design. Jigsaw puzzles don't get put together by chance, right? Neither do 75 trillion cells find the right place. Now, I'm not going to name names, but I'm going to give you some creation science meeting advice. I'm with the Orange County group, and we had a speaker on biochemistry. Didn't understand a thing the guy said. She would have loved it. She's got a degree. You ever have speakers like that? They just speak way over your head. They're geniuses talking to people in their field. Bear with it. Well, he said, any questions? So I said,
What'd you say?
No.
I said, what's cancer? And a couple people chuckled. And he said, a cancer cell is a cell that doesn't know where to go. Your healthy cells know where to go. A cancer cell doesn't know where to go. It hangs out in the wrong place, reproduces like crazy, and sucks the life out of a certain organ. So I said, oh, that's neat. So if you have a speaker who's way over your head, get as much as you can, but during question and answer, try to get it on something simple. 75 trillion cells all in the right place.
Bill, your other question, she was asking their testimony, which helps personalize the whole talk too.
Yes. Once I heard a speaker, John Sanford. Have you had him yet? He's very, very good. But at the end, I asked him for his testimony. How many people have heard of John Sanford? Amazing man of biochemistry. Got a PhD in Wisconsin, taught at Cornell for many, many years, invented something called the gene gun to figure out the genome. Big man of science. Was having marital problems. And at the end of his lesson, I said, could you give your testimony in 2 minutes? He was teaching at Cornell, having marital problems. He was an apathetic atheist. His wife said, hey, the church gives free counseling. All right, let's go get free counseling. Well, they liked the church. They went for a while. Nobody knew he was probably not a real believer, and they said, why don't you teach a Bible study for the kids, Dr. Sanford? He said, okay. He said, well, I better read the Bible. And praise the Lord, he read it, became saved, and now works full-time for ICR. And he invented the gene gun from Cornell, incredibly brilliant, and he wrote a fantastic book on it too. You remember the name, Tom, of it? About DNA and mutations and things like that, natural selection. But he got the light of the Word, and now he's Christian. So thanks. Every cell in your body does 100,000 chemical reactions per second. Count to one, everybody. One. Okay, say one, please. During that time, every cell on the tip of your nose did 100,000 chemical reactions. I did the math. Every second of your life, your body does that many chemical reactions. 75 followed by 17 zeros. Now, everybody feels bad when somebody dies, right? Somebody you love dies. What has really helped me is I look at the point of time that somebody died, I grieve over their loss, but I say, God, thank you for every second of their life. We should be thankful for every second of our life with all the chemistry to keep us going. So is that design or chance? You can believe this guy. You don't have to believe me. That's a design. Okay. How many miles of pipes?
60,000.
Something's designed. There's a designer. This word is on nature shows, on A&E Network, the Atheist and Evolution Network. No, just kidding. It's a good network. Nature shows, biology books say the eyelid is designed to protect the eye. That means there's a designer. When my kids hear designed on a nature show, that's what they say. That means there's a designer. This word is banned from the biology textbooks. That word is all over the textbooks. Saw an article on the evolution of the heart, 14-page article in Science magazine. The guy wrote how the heart evolved. Now, who wants to role play the part of an evolutionist who wrote an article on the evolution of the heart? I need one volunteer, just for fun. Thank you. Okay. So he wrote an article on the evolution of the heart. I found his email address. Politely, I emailed him a few times. Then I asked him this question: what evolved first, the heart, the veins, or blood? Remember, he wrote an article in a Science magazine about the evolution of the heart. Guess what his response was? What would you say? Okay. Well, the heart has cells where you need the veins and blood to circulate to replenish the cells. I'll tell you an answer I heard at Chapman College. I was talking to an atheist. And bear with me, don't kick me out. I said, what evolved first, the heart, the veins, or blood? He said the anus. So what are you talking about? He goes, well, these small organisms, that evolved into a heart to circulate the blood in the veins. Whoa, okay. Well, getting back to my buddy, the magazine article, if you get details, you hear some pretty good stuff. He said, I believe they all evolved
At the
in an
same-
evolutionary flash. I typed back to him, what is an evolutionary flash? He said, all at once. I said, isn't that creation? He said, absolutely not. That is creation. We believe in instant heart, instant veins, instant blood. Suppose the body instantly does evolve hearts, veins, and blood. Does a human being have it made? No, you need a skeletal system, a nervous system, an immune system. You follow me? Suppose I had a human body here that didn't have a liver yet. Is it going to evolve a liver or rot? You need instant people. That's what we believe in, but that's how he answered that question all at once. Okay, talking about the Bible.
Why didn't you have arteries in the list?
I could have. Okay, good point.
Vessels probably would have worked better.
Okay,
Yeah.
We need both.
okay, great. All right. Well, how many people have heard people say Genesis isn't literal, it's prose, poetry, allegory, symbolic? You've heard that? Okay. Think how you would reply. Well, here's how I reply. Genesis chapter 1 quotes God. How many times? Take some guesses. Directly quotes God. The answer is 10 times. I heard somebody say it. 10 times Genesis 1 quotes God. Now, bear with me here for a second. Genesis 1 might be wrong. Genesis 1 might be right. Genesis 1 is definitely not symbolic, prose, poetry, or not literal. Why not? It's quoting God. Suppose I said, Phyllis G said she's going to give you $1,000. That could be true, that could be false, but if I quote her, the author means it to be literal. You follow me? So the author of Genesis is treating it as literal. How many people have brought their Bibles? You get 10 points if you did. Okay, a couple. Well, Genesis 1, real quick. Let's decide if it's literal or symbolic. Turn to Genesis chapter 1, and you guys can do this later. Verse 1, it says God created. Verse 2, the Spirit of God was moving. Verse 3, God said. Verse 4, God saw. Verse 5, God called. Verse 6, God said. Verse 7, God made. Verse 8, God called. Verse 9, God said. Verse 10, God called. Verse 11, God said. You get the point? Over and over and over again, it's attributed an action or a quote to God. It's the most literal chapter in the Bible. Okay, but a lot of people don't like what it says, so they twist it. Any comments on that? Okay. You don't have to believe it, but don't call it symbolic. Okay? Oh, we just did that. Evolutionists hate details. I'm going to rip through this real quickly because of time. This is in your comic book, but this is from an evolution book. I encourage you to buy a lot of books by evolutionists, like this one. But buy it at a used bookstore so they don't get your money. Well, real quickly, all of this is a timeline. All of this stuff is alive today. They believe gorillas, zebras, mushrooms, frogs, trees, all live today, and I agree with that. But I want you to learn the details. I would love to teach in a public school, high school, the evolution course. I would never have to teach creation. I'll just teach the details of evolution. I'm going to teach you the details. I'm going to zoom in here. Notice people didn't make the chart, you know. That would be arrogant, but we have gorillas. Thank you. So we go back in the history of the gorilla, back in time, and the zebra line joins with the gorilla line right there. What are they teaching?
Zebras came from gorillas.
Very good. They believe zebras and gorillas have a common ancestor, that some animal existed where some offspring became zebra, some became gorilla. Is that animal alive today? Is there one fossil to support it ever existed?
No.
Well, why are they teaching it then? Because they like the hypothesis. Not because of observation, they like the hypothesis. They invent that that animal existed. You go back further. Evolutionists think frogs and gorillas have a common ancestor. Is that alive today? Many fossils, no. You go back further. Evolutionists think mushrooms and gorillas have a common ancestor. If you're an evolutionist, you think you're related to mushrooms. Okay? You go back further. Evolutionists think pine trees and gorillas have a common ancestor. And if you go all the way back, evolutionists think All life has bacteria ancestors. The best question to ask an evolutionist is this. Do you believe you have bacteria ancestors? Forget about the apes. Ask them about bacteria ancestors. So I want you to fill in the blanks. If you think the theory of evolution is true, you think you have what? Bacteria ancestors. If you think creation is true, you think bacteria can only make what? And people come from? Okay. Real quick, I was at UC Irvine passing these out. A little guy in a bow tie came by. I said, good morning. I think that's the best witnessing thing to say to someone. He takes it. He goes, what's this? I put my hands behind my back on purpose. I said, that's on creation evolution. What's your opinion? He goes, I teach evolutionary biology. I said, well, great. What's your opinion on creation evolution? He said, evolution, of course. I asked him this question. Do you believe you have what? Bacteria ancestors. Guess what his response was?
No.
Was it yes? Was it no? It was rage and fury. He was furious. Here, I don't want any of this. Take it back. Where were my hands? I couldn't take it back. Hands it back. No. You should read it. He goes, I want to save some trees. Your soul is more important than the trees. He starts walking away furious. He was with a buddy. He was really embarrassing himself. He goes, I'm not talking to you. You're closed-minded. Well, I worked construction, and all you do, how many guys in here worked construction in your past? All you do is tease each other all day long, right? You come up with comebacks. So he said, I'm not talking to you, you're closed-minded. I said, if I'm closed-minded, why are you leaving? He ran away. Now, why did he become angry?
He didn't have it.
Do you think he really believed we have bacteria ancestors? No, if he was a scientist who believed we had bacteria ancestors, he'd say, of course I do, based upon paleontology, zoology, taxonomy, biochemistry, genetics, I believe it. No, every field of science, genetics especially, throws a pie in the face of those beliefs, and he went running away. He's getting paid big bucks at UC Irvine to teach it, but he doesn't really believe it. He's pushing a lie on people. Otherwise, he would not be emotional. Otherwise, they would debate too, but they know they can't win these debates. Okay, this is a picture. We'll get off that joke. What do you think that orange stuff is? Very good. Bacteria and the sharp end of a needle. If you're an evolutionist, you think 100 members of your family can sunbathe on the sharp end of a needle. But here's the serious point. If you're an evolutionist and wash your hands with antibacterial soap, what are you doing?
Killing your ancestors.
Killing your family members. I think it takes more faith to believe that's Grandpa Joe than to believe that was created as bacteria, will only make bacteria, and came from bacteria. That is not a member of your family tree. Natural selection is so important. How many have never heard of it? How many have heard of it? How many believe it is not true? Any of you? A couple of you? Very important. Natural selection is so important for the Christian, and this is in your comic book. Imagine you own a furry dog and a hairless dog. You take them to Alaska in the summertime to go camping with you. You come back to California, and you say, oh, I forgot the dogs. So these poor dogs are stuck in Alaska in the summer. They fall in love, get married, reproduce. They make a mixture of puppies, some furry, some hairless. What's going to happen when the Alaska winter comes?
Hairless pups die.
Well, first they say mucho frio,
My
and
grandkids.
then they are dead. When you're dead, you can't reproduce. What about these dogs? They live, they reproduce. What do they make?
Both.
More likely to make mostly furry dogs, but the fancy word is phenotype, which just means physical trait. Could show up about hairless dog. Next winter comes, what happens to this poor little guy? He dies in a short amount of time. The only type of dog in Alaska will be furry. This is natural selection. Suppose you dump your dogs by accident in a hot desert. The only type of dog that would survive is the hairless dog. Very important point. Is natural selection 1,000,000% true? Raise your hand if you say absolutely. Christians need to know natural selection is 1,000,000% true. Is it evidence that dogs have bacteria ancestors?
No.
No, because,
Dogs make
Oops.
dogs.
oops, I I got dogs make dogs. Whenever I debate an evolutionist, I've had 3 public debates. Every time I've said, do you want to go first or second? They're probably saying, what a nice guy this is. And they say, I want to go second. Okay, I'll go first. Good, I want to go first. Go first. Take away natural selection in your opening argument. You've taken away 95% of their argument. It's a beautiful thing. You'll see it in the debate at USC. Oh, well, I covered natural selection pretty well. Oh my goodness, I got 15 minutes to cover. Natural selection is true, but it doesn't mean you have bacteria ancestors. How would you answer this? If someone says, do you believe in evolution?
What kind of evolution?
Don't say yes or no. Very, very important. What do you mean by evolution? Evolution means change. Do you believe in change? Sure. What type of changes? People are getting taller, but people make people. On the George Norrie show, he said, Bill, we want to do a question for our audience to phone in on. And I said, Mr. Norrie, could I pose the question? Never would I say, do you believe in evolution? I pose the question, do you believe you have bacteria ancestors? You follow me? Because they'll talk about people getting taller. Bacteria gets mutated, right? It is still bacteria. You can breed dogs. They are still dogs, right? So bacteria ancestors clarifies the question. Okay, some hard science here for you guys. I'll teach you the difference real quickly between boys and girls. This took me 2 hours to make. My daughter was about 5. She said, Dad, you can't have Sleeping Beauty with Prince Charming. I said, what are you talking about? How many women here know exactly what I'm talking about? How many men have no idea what I'm talking about? See, girls are weird. I've told you that for years. No. She told me every princess had their own prince. I had no clue. I couldn't find Prince Philip or whatever, so I left it. So anyways, moving on with science. You can have my slides for free. Everybody wants to get a copy. This is my favorite slide. If you think humans have amphibian ancestors, what caused the change? That's a good question to ask. Wasn't a kiss from a princess, that's a fairy tale. This is the secret weapon of evolution, and it's right here. The magic wand of time. I said, do you believe you have bacteria ancestors? Well, yes. It took millions and millions of years, the intellectual will say to you, right? Is this a science answer? Yes or no? No, because it's not based on observation. It's blind faith in time. I took college biology for fun. It said the brain evolved at the end of a nerve cord over time. The 4-chambered heart evolved from a 2-chambered heart over time. End of paragraph, end of thought. The origin of the brain is pretty important. It just happened over time. Well, that's not science. It's not based on observation. First off, frogs what?
Big frog.